Madam, I am very grateful to
you. Speak, Mr. Mishra? You would like to speak? No? Okay.
Madam, I am extremely grateful to some of the honourable members who have expressed detailed opinions on this bill. I'll just deal with two of the fundamental questions which have been raised by some of the honourable members. The first with regard to the rotation of the scheduled caste constituencies. The issue of rotation is not covered in the present bill.
96
It is a much larger issue on which we require a separate discussion. The present bill is only concerned with one limited issue as to what is the basis, as the base year on basis of which the delimitation is to be done. Earlier we had anticipated that the availability of the census figure will take a reasonably long time. It had taken much longer even in the last time the delimitation was done. But these days, with the best available software, I am given to understand that after the consensus figure is available, the completion of the delimitation exercise, which had taken 4 to 5 years last time, is a matter of months. Therefore, it does not take a much longer time. In the last 8 months, in fact, substantial headway also on basis of 1991 had been made. The issue of rotation has to be seen in the light of two facts. The first, it involves a constitutional amendment with a very major ramification. That can only be done if there is a larger consensus which is built up amongst political parties. Various discussions have been held amongst political parties also, and no such consensus amongst political parties has emerged. And therefore, the possibility of that being brought into this House for discussion or approval in the absence of a consensus does not arise. Secondly, those who have been supporting the idea of rotating the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe constituencies have been suggesting that constituencies which are indefinitely reserved, the general category voters in those constituencies do not get an opportunity to contest. And in other constituencies which are unreserved or general constituencies, general candidates are generally being put up, and the scheduled caste candidates there don't get much of an opportunity. This is the argument which they have been giving. The argument against this, besides the absence of consensus, has been that rotation will really mean that people stop nourishing their constituencies once there is a disincentive that next time the constituency is going to be reserved. There is one more consequence which we must be aware of. There is a difference in the Delimitation Act, and this difference has existed even in the earlier Act and the present Act, between the basis of reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe constituencies. Scheduled caste constituencies under section 9 will be those where the number of scheduled caste voters is comparatively large. Therefore, you will prepare a list of the constituencies where there is a large scheduled caste population. The larger amongst them, not with regard to arithmetical precision, but generally with regard to arithmetical precision, will be reserved. But if you find that all constituencies which are being reserved are contiguous to one another and not spread out through the state, some element of discretion exists with the Delimitation Commission to actually leave out some of the larger constituencies and to go to the next larger constituencies so that the seats of the scheduled caste could be spread over. However, with regard to the scheduled tribe constituencies, the words which this House has used consciously is to reserve those seats where the scheduled tribe population is the largest. That is, wherever there is the largest scheduled, if there are two scheduled tribe constituencies in a state, the first two in terms of population will automatically get reserved. Now, if you start rotating them, one of the obvious consequences will be that where there is the largest scheduled tribe population, next time would be represented by a general category candidate, and you will find scheduled caste tribe reservations taking place in constituencies where the tribal population does not exist. Now, this can be one of the consequences of rotation itself, and faced with this anomalous situation, this has been discussed between political parties and a consensus of rotation has never been reached. And therefore, in the absence of the consensus, the government is not in a position to bring about this particular proposal before this Honorable House. The second is with regard to this freeze on the number of constituencies which we have imposed till 2026. 2026 is not a figure which has been arbitrarily picked up or a date. Under the national population policy, 2026 between the center and the state governments is the anticipated date by which we expect, on view of all the measures, the population of the country to stabilize. And therefore, it is only in 2026 this House will get an opportunity to rediscuss what the basis of the number of constituencies could be. Till that time, if we start increasing the number of constituencies as per the population increases in various states which has taken place, it would go contrary to the proclaimed national objective in the population policy. As the honorable members themselves just mentioned, there are states which have done exceedingly well in stabilizing population. Because they have stabilized the population and implemented the population policy, there would be a disincentive to them in as much as their population, the number of seats in those states would get reduced. And those defaulting states, as far as the population control program is concerned, because they have defaulted and failed to control and implement the population program, would get an incentive in as much as their political representation in Lok Sabha would increase because the number of seats would increase. And that is why a conscious decision with the consent of all political parties was taken that till 2026 we have this freeze which should continue for the present. There are several factors which the honorable member from the opposition bench, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, mentioned, particularly with regard to the possibility of distortions and asymmetries which are created in the process of delimitation. The honorable member was right when he mentioned, because there are a number of, for instance, Delhi has two constituencies, one with a population voter strength of 4 lakhs and the other with 30 lakhs. Now these are existing asymmetries which have come into existence. So the basis which we are following now is the number of seats at the national level will remain the same. The number of seats in the states will remain the same. The scheduled caste, scheduled tribe reservation will be as per as the 2001 census. Constituencies will be broadly equal. Now when we say broadly equal, you cannot have it exactly or identically equal. But while making them broadly equal, that is the spirit of Section 9 of the Delimitation Act, the geographical features, the methodology of communications available, the facilities available, various other geographical features such as rivers, mountains. For instance, if there is a mountain range which is coming, an effort would be made to have constituency on one side of the range rather than allow it to go on the other side of the range. These are all indications which we have given. The Act has not, and what Mr. Pranab Mukherjee mentioned, the Act has not nowhere stated that a 10% deviation in this regard is permissible. It appears that the honorable member is right, because in their internal guidelines, so that the Delimitation Commission does not itself act arbitrarily, they follow one yardstick in the case of one state or one constituency, and in the case, a different in the case of others. In their internal guidelines which they have published, the honorable member is right, that they have kept this 10% upper cap as the maximum deviation in the population and other factors which they can bring about. It's an internal matter for the functioning of the Delimitation Commission. It is their guideline, and the government or this House has in no way in the Act or by any other executive guideline so advised them. One question, sir, which we have all been concerned about is as to when will this exercise be completed. Between the 1973 delimitation and the present delimitation, one fundamental difference which has taken place is the availability of first-class software which is now available. Even for the purposes of census and calculation and processing that data, that facility now is available. Mr. Nariman raised a question, and some members expressed concern as to when do we anticipate that those figures to come. The provisional figures of the 2001 census have already been published. The provisional figures are all available with the Delimitation Commission. The Delimitation Commission can start functioning with those provisional figures. The final figures are expected to be published around September or October this year. The difference between the September, the provisional and the final figures is not so much relating to the volume of population, but to the tabulation of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe population, which is an exercise which is on as far as the census figures are concerned. And once they have the final figures available and the delimitation and the census figures are published, the Delimitation Commission in that event could then formally start the exercise once again, because some of the basic data has already been prepared on basis of 1991. In the software which is available with them, they'll have to retabulate the data on basis of on the basis of 2001, and that exercise will not take a very long time. I cannot today hazard a guess as to what is the exact date by which they will be able to do this. We have also to bear in mind one fact, under the provisions of the Act, once that report is submitted to the government will then have to notify the report after all the objections are invited to that particular report. We also have to bear in mind, as the Honorable Member Shri Pranab Mukherjee said, that some reasonable time has to be given to sitting MPs, sitting MLAs and also to potential candidates, that they must know the exact geographical size of their constituency and the exact nature of their constituency. So this information has to be given to them reasonably before the election. So if the figures are made available to us on the absolute eve of the election, it may be a little difficult to notify them for elections, and maybe the date of notification can be post-election. But if it is available with us reasonably before the election, then after consulting all political parties, and this is not a matter where government would like to take a unilateral decision, since it concerns each one of the political groups represented here, we will at that stage take a decision in this regard, so that reasonable time is available, and that would depend on how early the Delimitation Commission could submit its report. Sir, a question which Mr. Nariman had raised was, Madam, the question which Mr. Nariman had raised was that since the Constitution amendment does not carry a provision that it will be applicable from a date to be notified by the government, then the Constitution amendment becomes applicable immediately. And if it becomes applicable immediately, now under the mandate of the amended Constitution, after both houses clear it and the presidential assent is obtained, the new constitutional amendment would come into force and 2001 would be the basis. Now, if for some unforeseen reason 2001 census is delayed, the figures are delayed, would we run into a situation where we are caught between two stools, as the phrase he used, so that we have no figures available as to how the next set of elections are to be conducted? That, I am afraid, may not be necessary, because under the Constitution itself, they had visualized a situation of this kind happening, and both in Article 82 relating to the delimitation, composition of the seats for the House of People, that's the Lok Sabha, and in Article 170 for the composition of seats of the legislative assemblies, the second proviso to Article 170 in bracket 3 and the second proviso to Article 82 3 itself clarifies, and I will just read out the proviso: provided further that such readjustment shall take effect from such date on which the President may by order specify, and until such readjustment takes effect, any election to the Legislative Assembly may be held on basis of the territorial constituencies existing before such readjustment. So the framers of our in fact, whenever we read this Constitution document, at times every time we appreciate those who drafted this document, because almost every conceivable contingency has been taken care of at the time when they drafted the original text. So when the original Constitution was drafted, a contingency of this kind, where the next figures are not available, we don't jump into a situation of vacuum where we have no figures available. That's a situation where Article 170 and Article 82 have a proviso which deals with that situation, and therefore I do hope such a situation may not arise. Sir, with regard to the number of the constituencies, the Honourable Member and the Minister, my colleague, had also raised this question, and some members had raised this question about the question of reservation of constituencies for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe voters and electorate. A conscious decision has already been taken by this House through the earlier Constitution amendment, that whereas there is a freeze on the number of constituencies, the number of constituencies to be determined for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe reservation would be on the basis of the latest census figures. And those basis of the latest census figures in the earlier case was envisaged as 1991, and today it will be on basis of 2001. Whatever are the census figures available, as nearly as possible to that figure, in proportion to that figure, the reservation of constituencies would take place. With these words, Madam, I commend to this House that these amendments to the Constitution may be accepted.
Thank you.